You ever have that feeling, that sinking feeling at work? The one that tells you no matter what you do, someone is kind of working against you, just chipping away at your success? It is so frustrating, right? And it can feel really isolating. But it turns out it's not that uncommon. Today, we're going to dig into a totally new blueprint for leadership, one that's designed to build a culture where that kind of sabotage just can't take root.
You see, sabotage isn't random. It thrives in a very specific kind of environment, one that's built on fear. When a system rewards individual competition above everything else, and there's zero psychological safety, people naturally just start looking out for number one, and that's often at the expense of everyone else. It just becomes the norm.
So, how do we fix it? Well, it's going to take more than a few new HR policies. It really requires a fundamental shift in what leadership even is. We're talking about moving away from that old top-down command and control model and toward a system that's actually built to create community and shared purpose.
And this image just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you see that thorny pyramid of traditional hierarchy. I mean, that structure is practically designed to breed fear and competition. But on the right, you see a community thriving together. It's a model based on fulfilling functions for the whole group. And this isn't just some abstract theory. We're about to look at a fascinating real-world example.
Our case study actually comes from a place you might not expect, the Afrogoth movement, founded by Mildred Achoch. It's this incredible fusion of cultural reclamation and cutting-edge technology that, as it turns out, gives us a tangible, fascinating blueprint for building a sabotage-proof culture right from the ground up.
So, how does this actually work in practice? Well, the Afrogoth model isn't about having one single leader sitting at the top. Instead, it's built on 4 essential functions. You can think of them as archetypes that all work together. And here's the crucial part. Anyone can step into these roles to empower the community.
First step is the vision weaver. This is the storyteller. Think about it. In a workplace, gossip and backstabbing thrive when there's a story vacuum. The vision weaver fills that empty space with a powerful, positive, and shared story about where the team is headed, which makes all those little divisive side stories totally irrelevant.
And the Afrogoth movement does this with 3 pillars. Remember grounds them in their history. Resist gives them the power to challenge the status quo. And redefine uses that solid foundation to project a really compelling new future. It's a clear, unified story that everyone can get behind.
The second function is the system navigator. This role is all about making things transparent and fair. You know how sabotage, like getting excluded from projects, just loves to hide in the shadows of complex, murky systems? Well, the system navigator shines a big, bright light on those structures and finds clever ways to get around the traditional gatekeepers.
And check out how Afrogoth puts this into practice. They see technology like AI as a master key that can democratize access for everyone. This lets them bypass old, exclusive networks and create more open workflows, basically tearing down the very walls where sabotage loves to hide.
The third function is the community organizer. This is the role that directly fights back against a culture of hyper-competition. Instead of pitting people against each other, the community organizer is all about building strong relationships and fostering a real, genuine sense of shared purpose.
The goal here, as you can see, is to transform some static project into a living, breathing movement. It's about building a true community of active participants, not just a list of colleagues. Because when people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, they protect it, they collaborate, and that makes sabotage from within almost unthinkable.
And finally, we have the healer and bridge builder. And honestly, this might be the most crucial role of all for creating real psychological safety. It's the part that acknowledges that past conflicts and traumas, whether they're historical or just from last quarter's brutal layoffs, have a real impact. This function tackles that history head-on to build trust that actually lasts.
And this slide just brilliantly shows how they do it. Afrogoth uses these tangible cultural elements, their aesthetic, certain fabrics, the history of henna, not to run away from a difficult past, but to create a dialogue around it. This builds a foundation of honesty and trust, which is the ultimate antidote to a culture of fear. So, we've got these 4 really powerful functions, but how do they all work together? That's where the final piece of this blueprint comes in, a clear, operational framework that makes all these ideas actionable. And it all comes together in what the founder calls the reconciliation framework. Now, the key isn't really the acronym itself, but how it works as a guide. It links each of those archetypes to core operating principles. As you can see here, the healer operates with respect and acknowledgement, the vision weaver with communication and integrity. This is what makes the entire model so practical and so replicable.
And that's the real power here. This isn't just about one fashion movement. It is a sustainable blueprint for any team, any organization, any project that wants to build a resilient, collaborative, and mission-driven culture, one where undermining your colleagues is basically culturally impossible.
So, I'll just leave you with this thought. We spend so much time trying to police bad behavior at work with more rules and more regulations. But what if the real solution isn't about adding another rule to the handbook? What if it's about fundamentally changing the way we lead? What if we started building communities instead of just building hierarchies?
Right. It's that exact moment when you realize the challenge isn't just about the project anymore, it's about navigating all these hidden agendas. It's a feeling that can just totally kill your focus and your passion for what you do. And the signs, well, they can be incredibly subtle. One article I read on this listed a bunch of things, like all of a sudden you're not invited to key meetings anymore, or maybe your deadlines get torpedoed by these mysterious, unexplained mistakes. These aren't just you being paranoid, these are real and they're destructive tactics.
But here's where we need a critical shift in our thinking. What if these things aren't just the work of a few bad apples? What if they're the totally predictable result of a broken system? A culture that pushes self-preservation over collaboration, where fear just chokes out any chance for open dialogue and actually encourages people to act this way.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at how work can become this breeding ground for sabotage. Then, we'll introduce a new leadership blueprint and its 4 key functions. And finally, we'll dive into a really practical framework to put this whole thing into action.
So let's get right to the root of the problem, the culture.